How's everybody today? Good. I think our players are working very hard to prepare for a very good team. I think when you play a good team that's very balanced and does a great job of executing, you got to match that with your ability to execute and everybody do their job, and that really starts with, how you prepare for the game in terms of every day in practice. Every day in practice we got something different that we want to, try to accomplish. So we need to channel our focus and our energy into good execution, and I think that's how you make the team better. That's how you play better. That gives us the best opportunity to play best on Saturday. It's always a challenge playing on the road in the SEC, and I think it's always a test of your competitive character to be able to stay focused and, do the things that you need to do to execute and do your job under difficult circumstances. That's what makes a great competitor, and we've had some teams around here that have done that very well, and this is certainly going to be a challenge and a test for our team, but I believe in our team, I believe in our players, and I believe in the way they've worked to try to get ready for this game this week. It's kind of time to start thinking about, really what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, how you want to play, and get zeroed in on, psychologically on what we got to do, because I think you got to have the right mindset when you play on the road, because difficult circumstances. We don't really have any personnel injuries or updates to report, but it's going to be very important for us to continue having a kind of a competitive spirit that has been reflected in some of our other teams, and it's a challenge for this team to create that identity for themselves.
I know you've always taught it, but this team, this defensive line, seems especially adept at batting balls down at the line. Have you seen anything different that you guys are doing this year? What do you think has led to that?
No, I just think it's the kind of players that we have. They got good awareness, good timing of the quarterback. We really emphasize attacking the quarterback's hand. This year probably more than we ever have in the past, but we got some guys that played basketball and are pretty good athletes, and they kind of do a really good job of that. And I think the kind of passes a lot of teams throw now, though, you really have to short, quick passes. A lot of them, run pass options. So, a lot of balls aren't thrown but 5 yards down the field. So you really have an opportunity to do that a lot more than you used to. And I think our guys have done a good job of it.
Left side of John.
Nick, we've talked a lot about, the running game that Georgia has, Nick Chubb, Sonny Michael. What have you kind of seen from the receivers and their tight ends? I know you recruited Jeb, but just kind of what kind of matchup problems do they, possess in this game?
Right, Malcolm Mitchell is a really, really good player. Sonny Michel is a really good back, but he's also a really good receiver who they've used out the backfield. They've got a couple young players that are really, really fast, quick guys that they've used effectively in these first few games. So, I have a lot of respect for their receivers. I certainly have a lot of respect for their quarterback and the way he's been able to execute. And, we're going to have to do a great job of covering and very disciplined and, doing the things that we're supposed to do, because, they create stacks and bunches and lots of different things that pro-type coaches, do. So, our guys are going to have to do a good job of focusing on what the coverage is, what's my job, what's my key, what's my responsibility, what do I need to do on this play.
Georgia's secondary forces a lot of interceptions. It seems like they're very aggressive. What do you see from that back end of their group?
Well, they got a very aggressive team. They do a great job. They got good pass rush. Had two guys that are really good pass rushers on the edge, and they really push the pocket. They do a good job of disguising in the secondary. They play multiple coverages that I think the quarterback's got to be able to identify. So he's throwing the ball the right place at the right time. And you got to play fast against them. Receivers got to play fast, and we got to be precise in what we're doing. And the quarterback's got to make good decisions about where he goes with the ball. But they have been a very aggressive secondary.
Nick, two questions. First of all, with Bo Scarborough, I'm sure early on you guys will ease him back into having any sort of workload, but could you see him contributing it more than just running back? Could you see him being like a multidimensional, versatile type of guy?
Well, I think, the difficulty is once you get in the season, you know, we can't invest a lot of reps in Bo Scarborough when he can't play in the game. You know, we have to get the guys ready to play in the game. All right, so now you're talking about a guy that really knows how to play running back. All right, but now you're going to try to teach him how to do all these other things during the course of the week. You know, it's really, really difficult. But, you know, we would like to try to get a role for the guy on our team because I do think he could contribute to our team, and I think he could be a very good football player. And, you know, we're going to try to work that out. But it's much more difficult to do that now than when you create roles for guys in the off season and spring practice and fall camp. But you know, we really didn't have the luxury of doing that because the guy wasn't allowed to play in the first 4 games.
And with Cyrus, you had talked before, I guess it was during the course of the summer, about experimenting some with him, working with the wide receivers. With Robert going down now, has there been any more consideration to using Cyrus there? Have you been happy with the group that you have?
Well, you know, we've had a difficult time, you know, trying to do that relative to the guys that we have on defense, the number of plays we played on defense, the practice time. It's something that we've discussed and certainly probably have to consider in the future.
You talked about the quarterback making good decisions with the secondary at Georgia. What's your impression of Jake going into his first road start, you know, hostile territory? I know in Wisconsin or in Dallas it was not necessarily a true road game, but this is obviously a different situation.
Right, well, it's the best thing we've had to prepare us, you know, for a road game. And, you know, that's when he actually played his best game, I think. You know, I think that Jake's getting more and more confident. I think the key thing with Jake is to play with the right passion and energy and, you know, not get affected by external factors and just focus on what he needs to do on that particular play, make the right read. He's very capable of making all the plays he needs to make. So, you know, it comes down to mindset and focus on staying focused on the right stuff so you can make the right reads, the right plays, the right throws, and he's very capable of doing that.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.